Hey there, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. We're here. We're live. You're tuned into what will become episode 99. Not only that, I'm honored to be doing this with, I don't say this lightly, it's really, truly one of my absolute favorite people over the years. I've had the pleasure of sitting down with him in formats like this. I think this is our third time. We sat for a little bit before we just went on the air here. I feel like we could talk all day. So I'm so excited about this because for entrepreneurs, like I said in the description, no matter where you are, there's so much to learn from our guest. It's John David Mann. What's going on, John? Thank you for being here. I appreciate this.
I love it, Josh. You know, it's the New Jersey thing, I think, is what it got to be.
Yeah, remind me, you were born and raised?
Born and raised in Jersey. You got it.
Yeah, but you're no longer here, right? And I say here because I'm back here.
Good for you. Good for you. No, no, I'm not. I'm an immigrant.
To?
Well, Florida and New England. I'm right now in Massachusetts, so I go back and forth.
That's cool. Yeah, I flocked to the Big Apple for a big chunk of time, had a little stay in Texas, and now I'm back in the Garden State. I say it with pride. It's got a rap, but I'll embrace it.
Hey, the garden part is real, man. You go to the western part of the state, it's gorgeous, all that green, all that. Yeah, it's beautiful. Beautiful place. Beautiful, beautiful.
Yeah. I'm ready to hit record only because I know we could talk all day, off camera, off the air, off the record, but there is so much good here. I'm just going to get right into it. Hey there, Nancy. It's good to see everybody here. As always, do contribute to the conversation. This is going to be such a good one. You know this gentleman, right? The co-author of the Go Giver book and the series. And that's just one of your credits. Really cool. So much we're going to talk about here. I'm ready to get episode 99 recorded.
I'm in.
Let's do it. Here we go. Hey guys, thanks for joining us. You're tuned right into the Hidden Entrepreneur Show. I am your host, Josh Carey. Our guest today is truly one of my favorite people and one of the most genuine people you'll ever come across. You'll see exactly what I mean. You may know him as the international and New York Times bestselling co-author of The Go Giver, which also includes the entire Go Giver series of books. And combined, his books have sold more than 3 million copies. That's no small feat, I assure you that. Funny enough, he never planned to go into business. It just seemed to keep working out that way. Imagine that. Meet John David Mann. John has been creating careers since he was a teenager. Before turning to business and journalism, he forged a successful career as a concert cellist and prize-winning composer. My goodness, it doesn't stop there. At age 17, he and a few friends, started their own high school in New Jersey, little things. And along the way, he founded one food distribution business, a graphic design business, and 2 publishing companies. Again, all in addition to his now extraordinary career as an esteemed author of some of the world's most powerful and influential books. His latest book is The Latte Factor: Why You Don't Have to Be Rich to Live Rich. No matter where you are in your entrepreneurial journey, this is the episode for you. Let's welcome my man. It's John David Mann. How are you, John?
I'm excellent. Thank you. I feel like I'm Tom Sawyer listening to his eulogy. It's pretty cool.
I love hearing it that way. Yeah. So thank you for being here. I love being able to talk with you because there's so much. So let's get right into this. I know some of the facts on paper. You just wrote your 30th book in what I've learned 12 years time. My goodness, that's extraordinary. I also learned that your second written book was The Go Giver of all things. And I know that we could talk all day about that journey. So we'll talk all, in part about that. But I know that every one of your 30 books, except one, were co-authored with a writing partner. So I want to get your take on the element of collaboration, because I've always loved collaboration. You know, I spent 15 years in the entertainment industry, and I loved how art and creative things came together, everybody contributing their piece. And I know that no successful business, no matter where the venture is, happens in a bubble by one person. You need collaboration. But what's the draw for you to collaborate writing style with somebody, and how has that process been?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I'm not sure how I fell into this business model, but I remember that when I was a kid, my father was a choral conductor. He was his career was built on the music of Haydn, Handel, Bach, but especially Handel and Bach and the great choral works. And he was a musicologist and sort of one of the world's leading experts on the choral works of Handel. And so I grew up steeped in great choral music. And I remember my mom telling me that she thought that great composers achieved a much greater level when they were setting text that was truly timeless, classic, amazing text. And that when they would be setting like lesser texts, contemporary writers that were not so timeless, the music would suffer. And that really made an impression on me. And I co-writing with somebody, collaborating with somebody is a little bit like setting text to music, because you're starting with something that you didn't create, something that's kind of given to you. Like if I sit down with Bob Berg, Bob's not a good example because in the Go-Giver books, there was probably more of a true 50-50 mix of the two of us. They're all good examples. But so there's a bunch of Bob in the Go-Giver books, but there's also a bunch of me in the Go-Giver books. And even in the more extreme examples, like all the books I've written with former Navy SEAL Brandon Webb, my special operations buddy. Brandon was an exceptional Navy SEAL sniper. He came back to the US after serving in Afghanistan and taught advanced sniper courses and eventually ran the Navy SEAL sniper program, which is often held to be the toughest course in the world. So this is like an uber military guy. I got no military background. I mean, it's a completely foreign world to me, right? But we sit down and collaborate. We've done 6 books together, starting with his memoir. Even in that, where I'm clearly writing his life story, his material, I bring a bunch of myself to it as well. So there's a whole bunch in those books that is suggested by something that happened to Brandon or that Brandon said or Brandon thought, but I'm bringing my own experiences, my own thoughts, my own ideas, and we just meld, we mesh. So there's that meshing of 2 minds, 2 missions, 2 life experiences. And it's like I'm setting somebody else's thoughts to music. And that's so I think it's even like that with business, with great collaborators, with true collaborators. You're bringing something of yourself to whatever you do, and you're joining with somebody else and they bring something to the party. I have turned down a lot of writing jobs, a lot of book projects that had promise, but I didn't feel the mesh. I didn't feel the click. So it's an important thing.
As I mentioned in the intro, you've from age 17, where, my goodness, you and your friends, you started a high school, magnificent. And then you went on to all these other business ventures, never really expecting to find yourself in these roles. Is there a sense of your life in that era, and perhaps still today, takes on an element of reinvention?
Oh, yeah. Yes. When I was 13, my mom was a teacher of Greek mythology, and she was going to take a bunch of school kids, including myself, to Greece to perform a play, but Prometheus Bound by Aeschylus, ancient Greek play, in the theater where it was originally performed. So we were getting this play ready. We're all teenagers, junior high, and she said to me, I need 8 of these choruses set to music. Would you write the music for that? And I'm like, what do you mean? I don't know how to write music. And she said, well, sure you do. I can't do that. She said, yeah, sure you can. And I did. And that was one of the pieces that won a prize early in those early years. She inculcated me with this idea, which I think is probably a very common baby boomer parent idea, that you could do whatever you set out to. And I believed her. But yeah, the reinvention thing is very real, because I never sat down and said, okay, I think that at this time in my life, it would be prudent for me to do X, Y, Z. I never made that kind of conscious, planned career choice, as much as my interests and my enthusiasms and my curiosity kind of took me into a new area that I just really wanted to explore. And in the course, I have reinvented myself, maybe 5, 6, 7 times. And there's a pragmatic dimension to that, which is like, how do you make money? Because when you lay down a career that's established to some extent, and you pick up something brand new, it's like, dude, how do you survive? I mean, how do you not go broke? So, and there have been many lean years, and by lean, I mean like broke years. So it's not been an easy path. But
did you have to look at that? Because I think the trap is some people might see that journey and think, well, you failed here, you failed here, you failed here. How did you define them or look at them?
Yeah, it maybe more like sort of career ADD. Not so much as failing, as much as I've done this for a while and I kind of got this. I don't have this like I'm the world's greatest expert, but I got this for me. I got this enough so I get it. But I want to move on. I want to do something else. I want to, as a concert cellist, I was never going to, be the next Rostropovich or whatever. I was not the world's greatest cellist, but I was pretty good. I was okay. I could have established a career playing the cello and done that for the rest of my life. But I'd kind of done that and I'd had enough. And I was looking for something else, always looking for something else.
I love the, obviously any entrepreneur has to know of, if not devour annually, the Go Giver book, and really any of its total of 4 in the series today, right?
Yeah. 4.
So but the original Go Giver, like I said, your second book, what a sophomore thing to come to the table with, nearing 1 million copies sold. A couple of questions around this. First, what does it mean to you today to really acknowledge 1 million copies of a book sold? And also, was there any sense of, this could be a thing going into it?
You always hear people talk about, something that's been a success and they say, did you ever think it would be this great? It says, no, we never imagined. Well, yes, we totally imagined. Both Bob and I absolutely believed this would be, call it the untutored arrogance of youth or whatever, but we totally believed that we had a great concept. We had a book that would be big. We did believe that. We had no clue how to do it. And I've told the story before, but we didn't have an agent. We didn't have publishing connections. We had kind of nothing. And by these sort of circuitous, unlikely, almost impossible paths crossing of this and that, I ended up connecting with the agent who had sold the 1 Minute Manager back in 1980, which of course was a gigantic parable. Go Giver being a parable, sort of slotted into the business world like that was a perfect agent for the time. And she's been my agent ever since. And she brought the book to New York. And by the way, the book was turned down 23 times by publishers. It was turned down and turned down and turned down and turned down, and before it was finally taken and published. So it was a long, weird road.
So you're one of those stories today, almost nearing 1 million copies sold, translated to how many languages?
Over 2 dozen.
Over 2 dozen languages, nearing 1 million copies. And tell me, turned down 23 times. What does that look like? So you guys have the manuscript, you have everything, you have somebody even on your side pushing it and trying to get the publisher. Yes. And like literally, hey, do you guys want to publish this? No. Okay. And then, so is it like, is it like a punch in the gut every time and you have to figure out what the fate of this is going to be?
Yeah, and that's a really good question, because it's not black and white. Yes, it's a punch in the gut every time. It still is. I hate it when a book gets rejected. But let me tell you that the first, 16, 17, it came in 2 waves. First, we got over 12 rejections. And then the agent said, okay, let's take this back and sit on this for a while. And we went and we completely revised the manuscript.
You did? Okay.
We did. Spent maybe 9 months or so and made it almost a different book. I mean, we did a lot of revision, every page, lots of red ink. And then went back to New York a second time. We got over 12 rejections the second time, but that was the time it was accepted. So here's the deal about that. Those first dozen rejections, they were right. They were right to reject it. All the publishers who said no, they were right. It wasn't ready. And you know what? If one of them had said yes, this book wouldn't be at 1 million sales. This book wouldn't be in 24 languages.
Chills. I want to hear that again. The first dozen. Yeah. Tell me that again. The first dozen rejections were right because
it wasn't ready. The thing was not ready. As I said, it went through massive revisions. Most of the revision, in the case of The Go-Giver, most of the revising was deleting. Most of the revising was paring it down, making it simpler, taking stuff out. We wrote a brand new last chapter. We changed the gender of one character. Rachel's famous coffee was originally Raphael, and she was a guy. So we changed some things. It was still the same book, same laws, same text. You'd recognize the book, but it wasn't ready. And here's my point about that. You hear all these stories. You hear all these Colonel Sanders stories, right? These chicken soup for the soul stories about the people who were rejected like 60 times, 100 times, 600 times, but they knew they were right. They knew they were right. And those rejections were wrong. Well, sometimes the rejections are right. Sometimes you're not, the chicken soup isn't ready. Sometimes the chicken recipe is not right yet. So it's this combination, this is difficult because this is holding two contradictory things in your hands at the same time, which I think every entrepreneur needs to be able to do. On the one hand, you need to believe in yourself and what you're doing. Absolutely. You need to have this unshakable faith in your mission, in what you're doing. But on the other hand, you need to keep one ear open to the world and to the qualified voices in the world telling you no, because they know something you don't know. They see something about you and what you're doing that you don't see. They have experiences you don't have. And it's this combination of staying solid in your faith and in yourself, but also being open to suggestion. It's almost like people say, what's the secret to success? I say, you've got to have the arrogance of a teenager and the humility of a Buddhist monk at the same time.
Wow. It's amazing. Again, I love how any entrepreneur can really make that applicable, that if you're rejected in some way, if you're going for something and you get a no or no response.
The investor says no, the investor says no, the customers say no, the market says no, whatever. Yes.
It might not it might be you and your offer, your delivery, your persona, whatever, a whole host of things, but it also might be the timing. It's like, well, just not now. Keep doing what you're doing, but maybe, just like let it simmer and brew a little bit. I know we spoke about that. The Go-Giver was turned into over 24 different languages. You actually have the book in Lithuanian, right? Tell me about that.
Yes, I will. I love this story. So here you go. I can't tell you how the title because I can't pronounce it. I don't know what it means.
What book is that?
This is called The Go-Giver.
But now the cover is vastly different than what we know the Go-Giver cover to look like.
Yeah, it's totally. I don't have a Go-Giver within reach. I'd have to leave my desk to get it. But yeah, it is vastly different. And so here's the deal: we give up the right. I mean, when we sell the rights to a foreign translation, it's their baby. It's their project, from soup to nuts, from A to Z. The story of this one is my favorite. There was a woman, Neringa, I can't pronounce her last name, charming, lovely young woman living in New York, in London, expat, Lithuanian expat. And she read The Go-Giver and she fell in love with it. And she wanted her countrymen in Lithuania to be able to read it. So she left London, moved back to Lithuania to establish her own publishing company so that she could buy the rights to the book and translate it and publish it in Lithuanian. And she did. And here it is. And so now she lives in Lithuania. And I'm just talk about reinventing yourself. She left a promising software career in London to go become a startup publisher to publish this book.
Show me the cover of your most recent book, which I love. It's called The Latte Factor: Why You Don't Have to Be Rich to Live Rich. In a few moments, I want to hear the basis and the premise of this. Beautiful. But more importantly, tell me the importance of cover design. And I know we can apply this to entrepreneurs. Because cover design, among everything in the writing process, the title, the colors, the content, the testimonials, the layout, the feel of the book, cover design has to be one of the top three most important factors. Yes.
It is. It is. I mean, I think that they're the top three, and there are top three, and they are, and this is applicable to some extent to any other area of market creativity, but three critical issues for the success of a book. And the first is the concept, and by concept I mean title, and by title I mean concept.
I love it. I love it.
The book, and with the case of The Go-Giver, we had the title before we had anything else. The concept and the title were there first.
Really?
Same thing true with the latte factor. David Bach, my co-author, had been teaching about the latte factor for 25 years. So, but some books I've done, we don't find the title till near the end of the process. It varies depending.
Yeah.
But the concept, the central concept, in the film industry, they call this high concept. The concept of the book has got to be, you can call it a hook. It's got to be something that is unique, that catches your imagination, and that almost from the word go, you have a sense of what it's about. You may not know everything, but you get a sense of it just from hearing the title, and you go, oh, there's something great if there's something that is a cognitive dissonance about that. Like, for example, The Go-Giver is obviously a take on Go-Getter.
Yeah.
Because you got go-getters and now you got the go-giver. So there's a cognitive dissonance, like go-giver, wait a minute, go-getter, go-giver. How do your mind does a little bit of and that little bit of is a hook. So your title's got to have something that immediately sparks curiosity and interest, particularly in your market group, whatever that might be. I mean, if you're writing a memoir of Barack Obama or the Dalai Lama or somebody that everybody knows, that's the hook. You're done. So the hook, the title is number one.
And I just want to say really quick, I'm sorry, I just want to apply this, that when we're talking about title, it's not only to a book you might be writing, but it could be to any product, any service, any video, any blog article, any website, anything your business title, your program, anything, it's all applicable. Go ahead.
What you do uniquely that immediately causes interest. And I have missed this. I have as many books that have missed this as I have books that have got this, maybe more. It was easy to miss. So that's a critical, the hook, the uniqueness, that's number one. Number two is the cover, cover design. Obviously, in the old days, people bought books by going to bookstores and looking at them on shelves. They still do, only this is the bookshelf. This is where people buy books. More books are bought on your phone than anywhere else. More than on laptops, more than on bookshelves physically. So covers, covers have to work on the phone. And good cover designers now will take into account, what is this going to look like on a thumbnail, not on a 8.5 by 11 or 5 by 7 book.
Wow. On a thumbnail. Imagine that they have to shrink it down and say, what is this going to, right. Is it going to get attention scrolling? Is it going to, right?
Yes. Wow. Yeah. So everything, the colors, the font, the design, is there going to be a picture or no picture, all that. And by the way, that's not, we don't do that. That's part of having a great cover designer. Part of what you get with a good publishing company, you hope. I've had publishing companies, in my opinion, blow the cover. I got some great books I've done that I think the cover just kind of sucked and didn't do well. So, it's an art more than a science. It's both, really. So three elements, the concept and title, the cover, and the third is let's call it the first 90 seconds experience, the customer experience. And in the case of a book, it's what's on the flat, what's on the back, and what's on the first page. Call it the first few pages, but really it's the first page. There's this truism it's more than, it's this truth in the screenwriting world, in the film industry. If you're a screenwriter, you know that the first page, your screenplay is going to be either read or put on a slush pile by the first page. And that's just the truth. 120-page screenplay. I studied with a great screenwriting teacher in Hollywood. In fact, I took a bunch of courses with him just before we wrote The Go-Giver. And I credit him to some extent to Go-Giver's success, because I was just steeped in this great writing teaching right before Bob and I wrote this book. And he has a whole 6-week course on the first page of the screenplay. It's that important. So how a book opens, how a book starts, the flap, the back, the initial, if people read the first 2, 3, 4 pages and they're not connecting, they're not going to read the book. So
Hmm.
there you go. Which in entrepreneurial terms is like when the person walks in your storefront, when the person first gets you on the phone, when the person first goes to your website, your Facebook page, whatever that initial experience is, that experience is gold. You hope, and not pewter.
Yep. And that's one of the things I teach. One of the things I do is also help podcast hosts create the best interview ever, right? Because that's a goal I've learned I want to do. I want to make this for you, John, your best interview ever. And there are specific ways that I can teach, that I do, that I bring to the table. But one of them is absolutely what you just alluded to. It's everything. If you and I didn't have a relationship and I reached out to you and I said, hey, would you love to be a guest on my show? What are you, your only decision is yes or no. And in order for you to responsibly make that decision, what might you do? What are you going to do? You're going to click on one, two, or a few of my links to determine if there's anything there. You're going to make a very quick decision because, my God, you're busy. You don't know me. You don't have time to waste. What do you care? What do you know? So everything in my world that you could possibly click on needs to be considering that 90-second rule. I got to make sure if you go to my website, it looks great. If you go to my LinkedIn profile, it's great. If you Google me, it looks great. If you look at my podcast page on Apple, Google, Spotify, iHeartRadio, wherever it is that you're like, oh my God, he's got 100 episodes. Okay, he might know what he's doing. I want to, this is great. I'll do it. Or no, there's just nothing there. So everything needs to be solid in place, not just one or two things. Or like if you go to my Facebook page and you're going to quickly scroll and you're going to look, oh, I am deliberate of what I put out on social to make sure that it aligns with my message, with my voice, with my brand, and that somebody like you in a minute will say, this guy's, he's good. I like him. I want to be on his show.
Besides, he's from Jersey, so hey.
And it works.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. Totally right. One of the best things I ever learned about public speaking, which I don't do much now, but I in an earlier incarnation, I did a bunch of that, was the first 10 seconds. How many speakers get up on the stage after the introduction and they go, tap, tap, tap. You hear me okay? Everybody good? Hey, what a great looking crowd. Man, you've already lost me. I'm out. What I want to hear is you stand up and you go, it was the worst moment of my life. Or I want to have some opening line that makes me go, boom.
Yeah.
What is he going to talk about?
Yeah.
Those first 30 seconds are so precious. You can't waste them.
Yeah.
By the way, I mentioned those three things: concept, cover, initial 90 seconds experience. That's the tip of the iceberg that's so critical. The iceberg itself is, of course, the quality of the book. When they get to chapter 10, chapter 14, are they still having a wow experience? And that's, obviously you got to have the greatest thing you can possibly have: best writing, best concept, best service, whatever it is in your business context.
And how does one achieve that? Time in part, learning of the craft, putting in the effort, learning, growing. How does one achieve that element of success and result as they define it?
I am a huge believer in it's that thing of the arrogance of a teenager, the humility of a Buddhist monk. The humility of the Buddhist monk part comes in with continually learning. I'm a big believer in mentors. I have a few writing mentors that I am immensely grateful to, that I turn to, mostly through their online teaching rather than one-on-one. My agent is a mentor that is one-on-one. I go to her for her take on a manuscript, on a concept, on a book. So really quality mentors are so crucial. For a writer, for me, the number one important thing is reading. Reading quality books. I read and read and read and read. If you don't read, you can't write. And if you're, whatever you're in the business of outputting, you got to input that highest quality of that thing. If you're a dancer, go experience dance. If you're in business, go experience businesses.
You have to. I say the exact same thing. Speaking again of the podcast experience, if I want to continue to be the best podcast host and creator I can be, guess what I do every single morning? I'm running, I'm on the treadmill, I listen to something, I search and listen to a different podcast every single day. So I hear, and there are literally over 500,000 podcasts out there, so there's no shortage. But I want to hear different things, how people are doing things, what's working, what's not working. It's part of the education.
I'm doing something right now that I've never done before. I'm in the middle of writing a novel. Like full length, 400-page
For
Psychological.
clarity, we're saying you've never done it before. Why? Where's the connection there?
Uh,
In that
there,
genre, you mean?
Yeah, exactly. A psychological thriller. This is like a crime novel. I'm writing with Brandon Webb. My name is Seal Buddy, and I write books that are like 100 pages. That are at high school level. I write books that are simple. I write books that are parables. I don't write psychological thrillers. And writing a novel, man, writing a full-length novel is a completely different animal in so many ways. It's like you've been taking walks around the block for years, and now you decide to climb K2, or hike the Pacific Coast Trail. And so I've spent the last 10 years chewing up the best in crime fiction. I love crime fiction. And there are some amazing, phenomenal crime writers out there. And so I've been chewing it, absorbing it for 10 years. And now we'll see what comes out. Hopefully it's good.
Such a great point. Any entrepreneur has to indulge themselves consistently into the act and industry where they want to and are thriving. It's perfect.
Stephen King has this book on writing, which every writer knows, and a lot of people who even aren't writers love and know. And one of the most arresting things about the book that caught a lot of readers' eye was near the end of the book. He has a list of every book he read that year. That's it, just his reading list. And if you read his reading list, you go, holy cow. His reading list is so broad in so many areas that are completely unlike what he writes, but they're just all fun, top of the class literary fiction, all this great stuff. And you think, oh, got it. The dude reads. I mean, he doesn't just read. I don't just sit around and read parables. I read stuff, but it's the criterion is the best quality. Don't read crap. Don't read junk.
Yeah. I want to talk about the creative process, not only for you, which might seem a little obvious that there is one, because writing is certainly an art and a creative pursuit. But I argue that any business owner is in the creative process and pursuit, and it's a skill we can hone. I want to hear how you, as a writer, because from my point of view, you might be in between books and not really, having anything to write at the moment. Maybe you're, waiting for your next assignment to start, but certainly you have to keep busy every day. So how do you, what's your daily creative process like? What do you do to stay in that world, or do you just vacation half of the year?
I was inwardly laughing as you were starting to talk, because I would love to be in that place in between where I'm waiting for the next project. For me, the reality of it is always that they're like overlapping, and I've got like 5 planes on the tarmac all waiting for the signal from the air traffic control tower to say, okay, you can take off. Okay, now you can. And I pray for the peaceful interlude.
Good.
Yeah, but there are times where I can't write, where I just have to stop, where as much as I kind of need to make progress in this project, I just I'm full. I gotta stop. And what I do in those times, I mean, I have work-life balance is a whole other thing. And I have my wife, who's my best friend, and we do all kinds of things that are not me working. It's taking 5-mile walks, or traveling, or whatever stuff what we do, cooking together. But in terms of my own personal time, I read a bunch, as I said, and whenever I can't write, I put it down and read. I don't experience writer's block, because whenever I do experience writer's block, I stop writing and I read. Now that's a simplification. There are also techniques I have to get past, when writer difficulty comes. But I'll tell you, for me, in terms of the creativity of it, I email every day. I don't talk on the phone. I'm not much of a phone guy, but I'm a good email correspondent. I stay up with people on email. And for me, writing emails is like practice. Sometimes I'll be corresponding with somebody who asks a question, and I go back, and my email is like, a few paragraphs long. And in that few paragraphs, there's an idea for the thing that I'm working on. So I do a little writing every day, and it's not always in a book. It often is in a book, but sometimes it's an email. Sometimes I had a blog going for a while. I haven't worked in it for a year now, but that's another place where I always find places to go write where I'm at least using my fingers and my brain.
Last year, or no, actually 2 years ago now, I remember you and I connected like this when you released The Recipe, a story of loss, love, and the ingredients of greatness, with
Yeah.
chef Charles Carroll. That he was
Yes.
your co-writer there. Really great book, obviously. But then I noticed that among the elements of this book and the journey of it, you wrote a blog post that was titled, "How do you get 5 U.S. presidents to do you a personal favor? You ask." And my goodness, there is so much we can learn about that. Tell us about what that story is. And then I want to talk about how that applies by you ask, for anybody tuning in.
I'll tell you the Charles and President story, and then I'll relate a quick one that's parallel for me. So Charles, Chef Charles, my co-author for The Recipe, is a culinary Olympian. He's been to the Culinary Olympics 8 times. He's won a bunch of gold medals. He has won awards all over the U.S. He's a highly, highly accomplished chef. He's not on TV, so you don't know his name. He's not Bobby Flay. He's not, whoever, but he is executive chef of one of the busiest country clubs in the nation in Houston. And so he's both a chef, but also an administrator / coach / mentor, because he has almost 100 employees in this operation. And he's also an entrepreneur. He's been an entrepreneur his whole life. He's just such an entrepreneurial guy. So he wanted to mount a project to go to Afghanistan. This is back in, I don't remember when it was, Josh, 2010, 11, 12. I'm not sure. I forget the year, but it's on the blog. It's actually the most current blog post on my blog, so you can go read it. He wanted to bring a project to feed the troops in Afghanistan and bring them a floor show with entertainers and great food and cooking demonstrations and gifts and messages from back home. He went over, he did one of these trips, and he was so struck with the impact that it had on these guys and gals over there in the services that he was so moved by his encounters with some of these service people that he came back. He wanted to do it again in a bigger way. And when he saw how much it meant to them to get messages from people back home, he said, I got to bring a message from the president. No, not the president, the presidents. He decided he wanted to get U.S. presidents to record personal messages to the troops in Afghanistan for Chef Charles to bring over and give them. So, I tell the whole story in the blog post, but he wanted to get every living president, which at the time was Bush Sr., Bush Jr., Carter, Clinton, and then Obama, who was at that time in office. And he's like a chef. It's like in what was that action movie Under Siege? The guy goes, I'm just a cook. Remember that? He's just a chef. So he somehow got all 5 presidents, including Obama, to take the time to sit down and record personal messages. He brought all 5 of them over with him to the troops. It's something that is right there in the first few chapters of The Go-Giver. When Joe is going to meet this guy Pindar, he's kind of baffled that this famous, amazing, successful consultant would make time for him on a Saturday morning. And the guy basically says, you'd be surprised how often successful people will make time if you just ask. One of my favorite crime authors, this is the me story, one of my favorite crime authors living is a guy named Harry Bingham, who writes the Fiona Griffiths novels. He's a Brit. The novels are set in Wales, and he's this amazing writer. It's an amazing series. And I was so in love with his books, I thought, I got to write him and tell him how much I love his book. So I got on his newsletter and I got his address and I wrote him and I told him what I thought about his books. And we've been corresponding ever since. And I've made a new friend. He's like, this guy was too famous to reach out and touch, but no, he's not. Nobody's too famous to reach out and touch. I mean, if Charles can get 5 presidents, you can get whoever you need.
I agree with that. Yet let's clarify that a little bit, because there is a way to reach out, right? What is the way and not way to reach out? But again, whatever you want to do, whoever, literally, especially today, the internet, come on, everybody is accessible. And yeah. I've witnessed it for myself. I see it all the time. You'd be surprised how many people are willing to help you if you just ask. It can literally be that simple. But what are the surrounding elements that at least need to be in place so you have their attention?
Boy, I bet you have better answers for this than I do, Josh. But I think that the first is obviously you can't just reach out to somebody and say, hey, I want your help. Or you can't reach out with the first thing being, here's what I want.
Correct.
If you're going to reach out, the first thing you're going to reach out with is, here's what I appreciate about what you've done and what's meant to me. When I reach out to someone like Harry Bingham, if I say, I love Fiona, I love your character, I love this, and here's why, here's what it's done for me. And if I never hear back from him, if that's the end of the exchange for the rest of my life, I'm good. I've let him know how much his work has impacted my life. And I've had that experience with a few other of my favorite authors, where I've just met them in person or online and said, oh my God, favorite book of mine, just amazing. Here's why. I love your work. It's changed my life. And here's how. And they said, well, thank you very much. And that's it. You know what? I'm good with that. That's not a loss. So you can't go into it with the sense of, I need this person to pay attention to me and do this for me. Jeff Charles is an exception to the rule, because he was going after the specific thing. I don't know how he did that personally, but read my blog post, because it tells the whole story.
Yeah, we'll certainly link to that.
So that's the first thing, I think. And then the second thing is, you can't be demanding. You can't be, I need you to help me in this specific way. People have different ways that they may help. I have people who contact me and say, I'd love to get on the phone with you and just chat with you for like 5 minutes. Well, first of all, there is no such thing as a 5-minute phone call. I've learned this, unless it's to the emergency room.
Oh, goodness.
And second of all, no, I'm not going to do that. I don't do phone. Here's what I'll do. I'll get an email correspondence with you. And I always answer back and I say, you know what? I'm really sorry. I don't do phone, but I'll do email. I can do that. And they say, can you contact me on Messenger? No, I'm sorry. I can't do that. That's not what I do. Here's what will work for me. And in that context, I will help you to the extent that I'm able to do that. And so you need to respect what works for them if you're going to try to get in a two-way street.
Right. I also think the big factor is your why, making that clear to the other person. Yeah. But first, you have to make that clear to yourself. Really, if I'm reaching out to John David Mann and saying, can I get you on the phone for 5 minutes, which already, like you said, there's no such thing as a 5-minute phone call. Right. Next book title, by the way. Just saying.
Just saying.
Right. There's no such thing as a 5-minute phone call. A parable.
Yeah. Good. I like that.
Yeah.
Like that.
Something there. So if I email you and say, hey, can I get you on the phone for 5 minutes? I want to pick your brain. That's so no, I don't know who you are. But also, if I have a legitimate why and a need that I can present, that also combining what you said, of course. Wait, John, I've followed you. I've watched you. I love that you do this. This is how it relates to what I'm doing. This is how I connect to it. But this is really why, and phrase it how you can. This is why I'm reaching out to you. I find that if I can just figure out X, Y, and Z, I'll be better off to do A, B, and C. And I think about X, Y, and Z. So if you have 5 minutes, that might be beneficial. Something like that. Knowing your why. And
if I say, here's what I'm up to. I mean, people write to me and say, I'm writing, I want to write a parable. If they say, I want to write a parable, would you write it with me? I get that a lot, believe it or not.
I'm sure.
I have a great idea for a parable. Would you write it with me? And what I'll typically write back is let them, in all likelihood, that probably isn't going to happen because tarmac, planes, air traffic control. But what I'll typically say is, if you have a great idea for a parable, I'll look at the idea. Tell me your idea, and I'll give you my feedback. Sometimes I'll even say, if you got a chapter, if you've got a page, if you've got I will look at it, give you my feedback. I have had it happen where for a friend, I looked at a book to give him feedback, and I ended up getting into contract with this guy and totally rewriting his book. That's a rare thing, but it can escalate. So the simple request, would you just look at my idea and give me your feedback? It's a doable thing. I can do that. Yeah. Wow. Sometimes I can't. It depends.
Yeah. My brand, The Hidden Entrepreneur, of course, was founded on the idea that I spent a lifetime in hiding all of my power, my ability, in exchange for seeking that approval, showing up as the person I believed others expected me to be, remaining in this box with that label, and using fear as an excuse not to achieve everything that I knew I should and was capable of doing. Can you tell us about a time when you were just frozen in fear in your life, but you knew you had to work right through that
Boy. There was a time when I was involved in business. I was in the world of network marketing. I was both writing about it, and I was also involved as a business person, and I was making really good money, and I had been for a decade, and I was completely comfortable with that life because the business that I was in was going really, really well, and it started to crash. And I found that nothing that I could do, nothing that I tried, everything in my bag of tricks, everything I knew how to do as a leader, as a teleconference person, anything I did, nothing made a difference. The thing was crashing. The thing was crashing. The thing was crashing. And it crashed. And I found myself in a place of, oh my God, I have no idea what to do for income. And I could see the writing on the wall. Within a couple of years, I wasn't able to pay rent. So I had to actually sort of assess, take a look around and say, okay, now what can I do in a completely different field? What can I do brand new? I got to start from scratch in my 30s or 40s, whenever this was. And that can be terrifying. This has happened to me more than once. It's happened to me several times where what I was doing started to crash and I knew I had to find something else. I've had books that failed and paid me nothing. 30 books I've written, only a handful have actually been financially successful. I think all of them have been successful, in the literary sense. I'm proud of all of them. They all have readers that love them, but only a handful have been financially successful. So there have been, many moments in my life. That was one dramatic one where I've been facing this financial hole and saying, oh my God, what do I do? It's up to me. The beauty of the entrepreneurial life is also the challenge of the entrepreneurial life, which is that it's up to you.
Love that phrase. Let me repeat that for a minute. You said 30 books written to date and only a few have been financially successful. But I guess that's what we're all doing, right? You just have to keep, yeah. And then all you want are a few things to drive you forward.
That's right. And the first thing that has to be said is, obviously, you can't go into something like this purely for money. That's just not going to work. I don't care who you are. I don't care how, what genre you're in. If you're doing romance and fiction, I don't care what it is. You can't do it just for money because it won't work. But it has to work financially because you got a life to support. So there are satisfactions and successes that I get out of writing a book that are separate from financial. And it would be the same thing with a business. If I started a restaurant that ultimately closed its doors, but I have restaurateurs, I have a lot of restaurateur friends who I know this, but there was fulfillment in that, there was satisfaction in that, but it didn't work financially. That's my experience in writing books. I've had a lot of books that didn't work financially, and what I mean by that is I got paid in advance, and the book never earned more than that. So I get paid. Typically, I get paid in advance, unless you're self-publishing. This doesn't happen. But if you're in a publisher, then you get paid in advance, which may be a lot of money or a little tiny bit of money. I've had tiny advances and big advances, but you get a certain amount of money that's supposed to pay you to write the book. Then you write the book. They publish the book. It goes out, and all the royalties that it earns first go back to pay the publisher back your advance. So first you're earning nothing. The first 10,000 copies or 50,000 copies or whatever it is pay you nothing because you're paying back the advance. Then, once the advance is paid back, they call that earning out. If it starts to earn out and now pay me an income stream, that's a financially successful book. That's the equivalent to earning a profit in entrepreneurial, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So most of my books have never earned out their advance. Huh? Just the fact of life. And those few that have, the Go Giver books, some of my Brandon Webb books, a couple of other books. This Latte Factor that just came out today. This book is going to earn out its advance. This book's going to do really, really well. It's already doing really, really well. I'm really happy with that.
I can see.
Again, it's number 30. And so it's the same deal with entrepreneurship. You may start 12 businesses in your career. You may start 5. You may start 20. I don't know. It depends. You have to know going in that it's like the acorn tree scattering the acorns. I mean, the oak tree scattering the acorns. Not all of those are going to turn into trees. Not all those businesses are going to flourish financially or even work financially. And that's got to be okay. You got to know that's your business model, because what you're going for is that one or those few that do work. And often they're going to work out of the learning you've had, the experience you've had from these so-called failures.
Yeah. And now that you have 30 acorns planted, each new one now, you have a better shot or a more significant shot because of the history that only came from the time you put in.
Yes, that's exactly right. And also, every book I've written that hasn't done well financially has been an extreme course in writing for me, had been an extreme learning experience.
Imagine that.
Yeah. I mean, and that's not just lip service. I mean, I've learned things about self-editing, things about structuring a book, things about what to take out and what to leave in, things about what structures don't work and do work, titles work, don't work, concepts work, don't work. I've learned so much in every one of those books. All of that is compost,
And
for
necessary.
Necessary. Yep.
Wow.
Yeah.
Talk to me about your core message. The way you put it is that you have the capacity to shape your own life.
Yeah. And I, as I describe this, I want to temper it again with the arrogance of a teenager and the humility of a Buddhist monk. There is an extent to which you have complete power over your life, complete control over your life. And what I mean by that is, you have the choices that you make every day. And the choices are often, we talk about this a lot in The Go-Giver. It's one of the core messages of The Go-Giver. Pindar says to Joe, you have a lot more to do with how your life turns out than you think. Something that I learned early on in my entrepreneurial life, is before I was writing any books, was how powerful our thoughts are. By the way, this is something that I learned early on in my world of sales and was writing about in my early newsletters and then in my early books, that I totally clicked with my Navy SEAL buddy, Brandon Webb. Because when he rewrote the Navy SEAL Sniper course with his teaching partner, he says his signal contribution, the prime difference that he made in that course, was introducing a program of mental management, of self-talk. So, it sounds a little touchy-feely. We're talking about Navy SEAL snipers. It is not touchy-feely. It is as real as blood and bullets. I mean, and it's true in every world that the things we tell ourselves, 95% of which are silent and only in thought, but also even you hear them in your words, the things we tell ourselves are so powerful or so potent. And you have the choice to change those. Somebody on a podcast recently asked me, what bothers you? What irritates you? And my answer was negative people. Negative people drive me nuts because I encounter people who are telling themselves failure constantly, who are saying, oh man, you're never going to get over that broken leg. They were saying this to my wife. My wife and I got the flu like 2 weeks ago, and a friend of hers is saying, oh, you're going to have this for 6 weeks. And we're like, no,
goodness. I know.
No, we're not.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. We're going to go 3 days. How's that work for you? And that's what we did. So a common theme in my writing, no matter who I'm writing with, is that you have an extraordinary level of control over the path, the way your life unfolds. You are in essence writing a book, whether you're a writer or not. You're writing a story, and the story is your life. Now, where the humility of a Buddhist monk comes in is there's also God and the universe and the world and everything that isn't you. And there are people out there who know you better than you know yourself. And there are experiences out there that are designed to nudge you in directions you haven't thought of. And sometimes those directions are the right directions. All the greatest things that have happened in my life, not one of them has come about as a result of my plan. I have to say Bob Berg ruined my career. I was planning on being a screenwriter, man. I was on my way to Hollywood. And Bob said, would you write this book with me? And I'm like, oh man, pesky, irritating. No, I don't have time for this. Go-giver, I don't get this. I didn't understand this concept. But I thought I'd give it a shot with him. And so it changed my life, changed my career, changed my path. My wife did not, all the greatest things in my life have come about as a result of the universe saying, I know you think you know what you're doing, but try, surprise. So, you control your own path, but there's also things that are constantly nudging you in directions that you need to listen.
Extraordinary. I feel like we can go all day,
Of course.
literally. I know. Thank you for that, by the way. But I will leave you with this final question. John David Mann, how would you like to be remembered?
He because of him, the world was different. He made a difference. I'd like people to say, I'd like it to say, by the way, one of my favorite endings in a movie is the last line of the Royal Tenenbaums. When you see the writing on his tombstone, and it's something like, here lies Royal Tenenbaum, who died courageously, saving his family on a sinking battleship, which was totally not true at all, totally made up. But it was a great metaphor for what he so actually kind of did, that scoundrel. I think on my gravestone, I would just love it to say he made a difference in millions of people's lives.
Wow. Well, this has certainly literally made a difference in my life. Again, did not disappoint. I was thrilled when you said, yes, you'll come back on. Always a pleasure, John. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for being you, for doing what you do.
Thank you so much. I love being here. We'll do it again.
I appreciate that. I will look forward to it. I appreciate that. And I look forward to doing it again with everybody tuning in, whether it's for the live broadcast or on the recorded podcast. If it's on Apple, Google, or Spotify, head on over, leave a review. I love reading your thoughts. Well, that's it for today. We're going to do this again before too long. Thanks for tuning in. Until we meet again, go get 'em.